What was your best mate's name?
His name is Paul.
Hey, Paul. Thank you for sharing Paul's story. In a way that you're comfortable to share, just say Paul left. Um, what happened for you that night? Like, did you say, when someone shares a story, it's very easy to put yourself in that person's shoes for a moment. And I did that, and I was like, wow, that would have been heavy. But then I experienced the beauty via your words, so that was beautiful for me. So thank you very much. And that death doesn't have to be so scary, even though it is. But it can be a motivator, and it can be beautiful as well. And then I went, man, if that was me, I think I would have went home and just hugged my wife and kids, and then I played. What happened with you the following, let's say, 24 hours? Like,
Yeah, well, I want to
over.
share with you, Andy, if you're okay. I'll share with you what happened in the moment that he passed.
Please, if that's okay, whatever you feel.
Yeah, I mean, Paul, I'll share with you. Paul told me, he goes, "There's probably going to be some really amazing and interesting things are going to happen," and I'll send you a picture of Paul. I'll text it to you. My last day with Paul, you'll get an appreciation of his eyes and who his spirit was. So as he was getting ready to leave, and I'm holding the weight of him, and I'm watching his breath slow. I'm watching, his respiration just change in his chest. And then he looked over to me, and we're this close. We're this close. He looked at me and he said, "I love you. And this is beautiful. This is beautiful." And then he looked away from me and he looked out the window and he goes, "Oh, James, this room, this is beautiful. Ah, the beauty." And then his last thing he said is, "Yes, the beauty." That's it. And as he said, "Yes, the beauty," his weight became like a feather. His body went from being 120 pounds, which used to be 190, but he went down to 120, and he couldn't walk any longer. And he was completely, he needed assistance for everything. But that 120 pounds was heavy in my arms. And then as he said, "Yes, the beauty," he became a feather of weight. And then the window had this sort of like, I'm telling you the truth, Andy, and the window had this sort of like energetic shift as the weight and his spirit went out the window. And the rest of the day, I remember when I sat in his room where we said goodbye, I don't know, maybe 3.5, 4 hours in the window, just to kind of just take in what had just happened. And then I called my mom, who's old, who's had a great big fear of death. I called two of my very best friends who I knew needed to hear this story because they had in similar situations. And then I came home, I grabbed my wife, we walked into the meadow in the woods here. We sat down. We talked openly about what we wanted the rest of our life to look like. There's a rawness that happens when death is that close, right? You get super raw. It's almost like all of your censorship of what would be okay to say, what's appropriate to say, completely gets lost. And all you do is your heart is just talking openly about, I had a fear of death. I had this fear of whether or not I was going to be a good man. I wanted to feel, I always feared I would be a good dad. We talked openly about all our greatest fears. And then we helped to kind of support each other about, how we've overcome these things. And then we talked about what we want to do the rest of our life. We've been together 30 years. And I looked at my wife and I said, "Honey, here's the thing I really know more than anything. I know that I'm not afraid to go, ever. I'll be sad to go, but I won't be afraid to go." And this has helped our marriage. And we already had it. We have a pretty phenomenal marriage, Andy, but Since Paul's passing, the level of our love, the level of our respect, the level of our vulnerability, the level of our desire to have just the best relationship with each other, with ourselves. We push each other in loving ways. We don't take any bullshit from each other. We won't allow ourselves to dim our light, to fit in, to be comfortable. So we become better at being better badasses in our life. And everything that we've been challenged by and everything that we've been scared of, we challenge it. We look at it. We ask ourselves, what are we most afraid of? And we bring it back to Paul and said, holy goodness, what do we get a chance to look? We looked at the thing that people are probably most scared of in their life, death. And I got a chance to see how beautiful it was so I could temper my own fear. And now everything that comes up for me that I'm afraid of, Andy, I put through the channel of Paul, and it completely becomes zero, reduced to zero.
What a great mate.
Yeah. And I think that's really what I think the world right now is aching for demonstrations of that kind of courage that Paul gave me to see. And I think all of us right now, you're listening to this, where, whoever's listening right now, ask yourself a simple question. Where have you systematically dimmed your light to be more comfortable in areas that you know are your greatest teachers waiting to happen? And what is it that you think is going to change by you waiting or postponing what the lesson wants to be in you? And can you give yourself permission to visualize what happens after you live through that lesson? The shackles come off, the openness begins, the healing starts to ensue. Life gets very, very rich.